Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first session of the 2025-26 Defined Symposium series. My name is Dr. Melvin J. Brown. I'm Superintendent in Residence here at Defined, and I'm extremely honored to be your host today for our kickoff session entitled Deeper Learning, Lasting Impact, Transforming Education for Tomorrow's Workforce. Today, we'll explore what it truly means to prepare students, not just for jobs, and I think we need to underscore that, not just for jobs, but for meaningful, purpose-driven futures. We'll connect deeper learning to workforce readiness, equity, and the evolving role that educators play in shaping tomorrow's leaders. Before we dive in, just a quick reminder, this session is being recorded, and a recording will be sent out to you in the next few days for your convenience, so you can go back and relive some of the wonderful things that are going to be shared with our guests today. Also, please feel free to drop any questions or comments into the chat as we go throughout today's presentation. We'll make sure we address those either during or after the presentation. So again, thank you and welcome. For the stars we have today to share with you, I'm extremely excited to talk to you with these leaders today to let you see how career-connected learning looks throughout the country and how people are seeing this as an important piece of what we do for kids going forward. Thrilled to be joined by an amazing group of leaders who bring deep experience, expertise, and real-world classroom perspective to today's discussion. First, we have John Gustin, Science Curriculum Specialist for Cherokee County School District in Georgia. Alongside him is Nick Garcia, the Social Studies Curriculum Specialist, who's also in Cherokee County Schools. Rounding out our panel, who be on the second portion of our presentation, is Dr. Tracy Pritchett, the Director of Special Programs for Terrell. Am I saying that correctly? I'm going to say I am. If I correct it later, we'll do that. I'm going to
Yes,
say it's
sir. Not many people get that correct, but good job on your first try.
I want to be sure. Terrell Independent School District in Texas. And each of these presenters brings not just experience, but heart and vision for the transformative work that deeper learning requires. Again, my name is Dr. Melvin J. Brown, and it's a pleasure to serve as your host and facilitator today. My role at Defined allows me to work with school systems and leaders across the country who are reimagining what learning can be and should look like, so that work is deeply personal and incredibly urgent to them, knowing how it impacts their kids and their futures. Today's session is about sparking that same conversation among some of all of us. How do we make deeper learning, not just the norm of what we do and not an exception in terms of what the work looks like? We're going to start off today by hearing from John and Nick, both from Cherokee County, and I want to make sure I give you a good idea of the expertise they bring to the table. John Gustin, again, is the Science Curriculum Specialist in Cherokee County School District in Georgia, a dedicated educator and leader in science instruction, named Cherokee County's Teacher of the Year in 2022. He's also served as a science teacher for 17 years and previously worked as a digital curriculum designer. He now serves in that role as Science Curriculum Specialist, supporting district-wide initiatives to create more rigorous, student-centered learning opportunities, including the development and implementation of project-based learning in all of the work. His work focuses on empowering teachers and students through innovative, engaging, and standards-focused science education. Along with him today is Nick Garcia, who is a 15-year veteran social studies educator. For the last 2 years, he served as Cherokee County Schools as the Social Studies Curriculum Specialist. And in that role, he helps teachers design and implement inquiry-based and project-based learning units throughout their instruction. He also coaches teachers in designing stimulus-based assessments, he loves enjoying creating multimedia content for online courses offered in their virtual school. And his passion is bringing out the best in all of his teachers so they can bring the best out in all of their students. That is the work that needs to be done, and we're excited to have them both here. Today, they'll share the districts, how they're weaving deeper learning into both science and social studies, creating experiences that move beyond rote content and into critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. As they present, think about some of these practices and how they may connect to your own context. What would this look like in your district, your school, or even in your classroom? And with no further ado, I'll turn it over to John and Nick. Take it away.
All right, unmuted, John. Yeah, we good? All right. Well, thank you for being with us today. John and I are really going to speak to how we've made project-based learning more approachable for teachers in our school district, We are both specialists working out of the district office, and we work as really kind of teacher support personnel. So that's what our focus is today, and we're going to begin by sharing with you a little bit about our school district.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. To give you a sense and some context, our county serves over 42,000 students across 40 schools and centers. We're located in North Georgia, and we like to say right where the metro meets the mountains. We're definitely proud of our unique blend of suburban and rural communities that we support. For this, science and social studies, we do offer defined learning to access at different points in different grade levels. But we have that same idea, growth mindset, to keep access and equity across the board. We've made it a priority, Nick already mentioned this, to PBL and inquiry-based learning is the center of our strategies when we're entering the classrooms. And we really have created the self-sustainable formats.
All right, so we did receive a new superintendent a couple of years ago. Last year was our first full year here, and we had the goal of elevating the excellence, and a lot of that was focused on instructional practices, whether inquiry-based learning or ADI practices in
PBL.
science, which is kind of like inquiry in science, PBL in science. And this year we're focused on continuing that climb. And as we do so, we look at usage data in terms of how Defined is being used in our schools and the impact that has had on student learning outcomes. And we're going to share some of those outcomes with you now.
Yes.
All right, so in our social studies PLCs that have used defined or project-based learning the most, we have seen huge increases in their student
Killing it.
performance. So at Creekland Middle School, they saw a 11% increase in their pass rate from 2 years ago to last year in their students that are performing in the upper tiers of their Georgia Milestones assessment, including an 8% increase in distinguished learners. So that shows us that PBL, inquiry-based practices, those combined are driving deeper student learning. And we've seen similar increases at a high school where we've been promoting project-based and inquiry-based learning as well, with a 5% increase from school year 23 to 24 and a 2% increase in distinguished learners there. So similar gains in science.
Similar gains, and really, like he said before, that increase in distinguished learners is that next step. You're always trying to move from one tier to another, and that is a really difficult tier to move students into, getting them to that last tier. For Cherokee County, our biology across the board experienced that 4% growth in 24 to 25, and that included that 5% growth in distinguished learners. Really excited to point out also our 8th grade science, probably the ones who dove deepest into defined learning and PBL, had that 8% point growth there. And we also are supported there 6th and 7th grade, really dove in there. So the students became really comfortable with PBL, inquiry-based learning. So it's nothing new. So you're starting to see that trend upwards. And first in middle school tested is 8th grade science for us. So today we really want to focus on how defined learning can make project-based learning applicable, approachable, flexible, and equitable. PBL is not for some, it's available and attainable for all.
Mhm.
So as we look at the next slide, we want to talk about what we hope to accomplish today. We really want you to be able to explain how starting small makes PBL more approachable for teachers, but also students. Because if you're starting with a big thing, too magnanimous, too large, the students aren't going to want to do it either, teachers or students.
Mhm.
You're going to be able to show flexibility and differentiation, how they allow these tasks to fit the needs of all students. We're also going to recognize how authentic learning, authentic engagement goes beyond those typical, as we air quote, poster projects, and really tie them into real world applications. For those of us listening now or later, we're trying to build skills, ideas, and opportunities. We're really looking to build that capacity and culture in PLCs.
All right, so speaking of PLCs and how we support them, one of the driving messages that we share with our PLCs is that the defined learning and PBL practices in general make learning relevant or more applicable to their lives. Now, as a social studies teacher for 15 years now, very early on in the school year, you get the question, why am I learning about what happened, centuries ago? And sometimes, unfortunately, there's not always a great answer.
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah, okay, science, not social studies. But there are times when what the students are learning might not be as important as what they do with that knowledge. So Defined does a great job of no pun intended, defining roles that the students can assume that are connected to real world jobs. For example, in my social studies class, I had students assume the role of like podcasters, social media influencers, museum curators, market analyst for an economics
That was
unit.
cool.
Um, Defined helps give teachers new roles that they can put in front of students and show how what they're doing with what they're learning connects to real world jobs.
And I love how he's talking about the new piece in there because, you know, I'm gonna age myself a little bit here. When we're talking about mom and dad coming home with posters to do projects when I was in school, you know, you hit the jackpot when they came home with that trifold.
Mhm.
You know, it was how big is it? How pretty is it? You know, that was really what you were being graded on. That is not the focus here. It's really making it new, relevant, and engaging.
Right. So making a marketing presentation to a corporation about which country in the Middle East would be the best new location for a US based company to open a store. That's the kind of things we're asking students to do. Trifolds and posters don't really have applications to real life. I mean, infographics do, but preparing a presentation for a marketing team is much more applicable.
Applicable. And what students out there don't want to be influencers? You had a great project with that too. So that's one of those other items. So let's go. Approachable. Defined PBL doesn't have to be a unit or year-long project. What we're looking for, start small, gain confidence through that productive struggle. Sorry about that. What we want to see is starting small, taking a single defined learning task, running as a day-long activity, built-in scaffolds. And then after seeing that student engagement, you can expand into larger, even interdisciplinary projects. And so what we're looking at here in an 8th grade class, a science class, we were doing energy and roller coasters. With that, what we wanted to really see was the students had choice. They got to work off of build it by hand or go into build it in Minecraft. But they were not just students, they were theme park designers. They had to identify a region of Georgia, identify a famous part of that region, and build their theme park around that and talk about advertising and talk about the history behind it. So we're really looking at ELA. They had to identify the id, the ethos, and the pathos. The history of Georgia. So we're having 3 different contents that are really building together. And that one small task really helped spark big wins for engagement across the board for teachers and students.
All right, so as we're working with teachers, we also like to share with them how flexible the Defined Learning platform is. So with project-based learning, it's a big step for a lot of teachers, and we have to, pitch different parts of it and make it more, again, approachable for teachers. And one thing that makes it more approachable for them is just knowing that it is a very flexible platform. It is very editable. Things can be added to the platform, things can be taken away from the platform, things can be modified within the platform.
Modification, the new AI feature they have, you can level up or level down for differentiation. You can enrich, you can remediate. It's a great opportunity. And we have a couple snips at the bottom. You can even work on switching languages between Spanish and English for if you have a EL with Spanish speakers.
Yep. So you're not locked into what's already in the platform. You can make it what you need it to be based on your student needs, your comfort level with the platform, or if you're just taking a piece of the platform. So for example, you just maybe want to look at the roles and present some roles to students and do something, a different type of product.
Yeah.
You have that editability in that it's modifiable in that way.
Modifiable, absolutely. And with that, we want to talk about the equity piece because it really shouldn't matter what school or what teacher or student gets. The standard aligned resources should be the same, activities across the board. What we want to see is PLCs coming together. So what we have seen as PLCs, they'll come together and they will edit it together so it becomes that one identifiable project for them, that represents their students, because no one knows your students better than you. And that's the goal there, is creating that opportunity. And now as they create, they share this amongst their PLC. So every student is getting that same PBL. And so that's a great opportunity, because when teachers and PLCs share these projects and ideas, every student is going to benefit. With that, I think even Nick, they had a PLC that they were super comfortable with each other. Each person in the PLC took a separate piece and built it. And then as these projects start coming back together, they've built a rubric together. So if they take a student, exemplar or anything, and they work through the rubric for that understanding, now everyone across every grade level or every class is going to be assessed the same way. And when you have consistent opportunities for all students, when a student does better in science, they're going to do better across the board in all content.
All right, so we do have, speaking of like the work that we do with PLCs, we do have a couple of documents that we're going to share with you all very briefly. One of them is a teacher look-fors document. This is something that we use to facilitate reflection on the part of teachers, or they can be used as a walkthrough tool whenever we go in to observe a class. So this has different things that we're looking for, and really the focus of this document is what the students are doing. It's not what the teacher has planned for or what the teacher thinks is happening, but really what are the kids doing? How are they owning both what they're learning and what they're doing with what they're learning? And it also incorporates, looking at collaboration, communication, creativity, all those more STEMmy things.
Yes, I mean, and this is that big focus, no dog and pony show. A teacher can fake it, but the students can't. What are those students doing? And we had a PLC opportunity where they really wanted to build their capacity for PBL. And as we're coming through and looking, before we even came through, we had that discussion with the people. They looked at these rubrics that we had, and they're like, oh, this is pretty big and terrorizing. They were nervous. So we actually had them identify one piece of the rubric that they wanted to focus on. And that's the only thing we came and observed on. So they really, and actually number one was what they chose, student engagement and ownership. So as we came through and did our learning walks, we really just focused on what were those students doing. And that really propelled them to that next step.
Yeah. In addition to the teacher look-fors document, we also have a menu of activities that can help PLCs reimagine how PBL can fit into what they're already doing. Again, just talking about how to make it more approachable for teachers. So these are ways that we have identified as ways to move PLCs from just surface level projects, those things that you can throw up on the fridge or set up on a table for a day and then, or even just for an hour and then it's gone, to really meaningful career connected tasks.
Yeah. One of my favorites, number 5, is a Shark Tank opportunity. We had that at 7th grade in Woodstock Middle School. They brought in community members to be
investors.
The investors that they were pitching the projects to. And that was the students had to create these ideas. And it was amazing. The community members are like, I can't wait to come back. When can I come back and do this again? This was amazing. And so it really created community involvement as well. And there's also some ideas on there for PLCs. If they just don't know how to work and you're looking on building protocols, we have ideas, the PBL speed dating. I've done speed dating in the classroom. So I was like, well, let's do it in the PLC. Every member of the PLC was given a defined learning project. And that's the great thing. Defined has done an alignment for our county. We gave them our learning maps by grade level. And what did they do? They gave us the ones that were aligned directly to those standards of those units. So as we entered that unit, all right, here's 4 teachers. Each of you got a task. They got 5 minutes to learn everything they could about it. And then they had to pitch it to the other members of their PLC. And by the end, they knew exactly which one they want to do. And there was no discussion or questions left about that. So that was a great opportunity. And these are linked in our presentation. We don't want to spend too much time going over that, but there's some protocols and opportunities in here for PLCs and classrooms for you.
All right, so with that, we want to give you all an opportunity to do a couple of things. Share one idea you're excited to try, or share with the team that you work in, or maybe PLCs that you support.
There are admins here. And what's one support you think would help you put that into practice? So if you want to put in the, we'll take a second to think about that, and put that into the chat, please. All right, let's see the chat. There we go. All right, yes, the speed dating, I'll tell you, some PLCs are great, some don't have the easy conversations. So giving them these protocols is a great way to start these conversations and getting them going. All right. So we're gonna,
I don't know that they know that they're muted.
sorry about that. Thank you all. The other positive hope we have with you leaving today is confidence that PBL is doable. You don't need to change everything at once. With defined learning and that positive coaching, small steps can make a big impact. And now you have the tools and the community to support you.
All right, with that, Melvin, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, guys. There were a couple of questions that were put in the chat that I'll share, and then as some others pop up, let me know. We'll address those as well. The very first one off the top, you talked in the beginning about identifying distinguished learners in your district. Can you elaborate on what that means? That's coming from Sherry, I believe.
So that's students that, when students take our Georgia Milestones assessment, their performance is kind of falls within four categories. You have developing learners, which is kind of the lowest tier. You have approaching, then you have proficient, and then you have distinguished. And distinguished is like the highest tier of learners. So anytime that we see movement from proficient into distinguished, that's a huge feat for us, because it's really not that easy to accomplish at all. So when we note that at the school that has been implementing PBL using Defined for years, at Creekland Middle School, to see them make an 8% increase jump in their highest performing in the highest performing tier of students, that is a really significant data point to consider when we consider not only Define's a role in supporting that student learning, but also some of their assessment practices that they've changed have been really positive as well.
And with those assessment practices, as we've gone in and really supported the PBL and inquiry in these courses and PLCs, what we've noticed is as they're using these rigorous opportunities with Defined and PBL, they themselves are noticing that their assessments aren't matching the rigor of their activities. So they're starting to up their assessments, whether they're asking for our support or building in-house with that capacity they already have. That culture of rigorous assessments is being driven by themselves because they're realizing what their students are truly capable of. And that's moving them from each stage from the bottom to the top. And that's where we want to see movement across every band. But one of the hardest is that last one to move them into distinguished.
Thank you so much. Was giving some really good questions. Second question that I'm able to pull out of here is when you guys went about implementing, was your approach to start district-wide at a grade level or a classroom level? What did that look like?
John, why don't you start with that?
For science, we really have middle school is a big focus there. And we have a great opportunity in Cherokee County of balanced autonomy. The schools really are deciding how and what to implement and reach out for the support. And then as we go in and we built these sustainable opportunities in these PLCs and with their coaches at the school level, they're able to share that capacity and build that culture. So typically a school will invite us in and we'll work on multiple PLCs in that same school. And that's what we like to call the wildfire. We're lighting a spark, and then other schools around are like, ooh, that's really neat over there. What are they doing over there? And they just fan the flames, and that fire of curiosity and growth just spreads to other grade levels, PLCs, and schools from there.
Yeah, and really it is the data. When they look at the improvement in student learning outcomes, even in the span of just 1 year, people naturally ask questions. So you'll have instructional leaders in other buildings or assistant principals in other buildings inquire as to what are you doing in your social studies or science PLCs to drive this growth in student learning, and the conversation typically comes back to what us and our supervisors are doing, but also what exactly we're doing with the PLCs, and it's stuff like this.
100%.
Very good. Next question, in terms of implementation, when you're talking about how it spreads throughout the district, how you get other people to buy in, so to speak. We had one of our attendees is curious about when you go about sharing the results and how positive that's been. Do you view it, or are you able to present some factual information in reference to causation versus correlation? And basically, are all the variables the same so you can weigh what kind of impact that might be?
Yes.
The individual, they're interested and they're getting pushback. So how do you manage some of those things?
Yes. All right. So at some of the schools that we've done, that we've implemented PBL and defined learning practices in, they do what are called data talks. So they have to look at their performance across different units of the year, and they sit with their admin team at their school and they present that data to their admin team. So when we were working with one school in particular, high school US history PLC, when they sat down and looked at the units they had done defined learning style PBL for, the student learning outcomes for those units, and specifically for the standards we'd covered with those units, was significantly higher than performance across other standards where more traditional instructional practices were used. So yes, we can point to the data. We can point to PBL was used to teach this standard, and the learning outcomes were much higher than those that weren't. So that's, yeah, we have that data, and the teachers look at that data, and it's honestly one of the things that keeps them invested, because a lot of them are hesitant at first because it does require some degree of thinking beyond outside of what they've been doing. But when they see the results, that's when they really buy in.
It's changing, it's that comfort zone. They're stepping back from being that sage on the stage to, the teacher facilitator role where they're just supporting. And when you have that opportunity to have those data conversations, and that's something I really have grown to enjoy, having data digs with these PLCs, we're identifying, just like Nick said, when have we used and what are the most successful areas? What were the opportunities that we used there? We got to celebrate those, and when they fell short in other areas, we adjusted those practices to improve outcomes for that next cycle.
Very good. Another question about resistance. Obviously, anything new, you're going to have those who are like, I don't want change. I like what I do. Leave it alone. Have you found that there is any more? You've been very unique in how you've implemented going through science and social studies. Have you found that any particular areas have been more resistant than others, and how might you have managed that?
I don't know if it's a content or anything it's just, if you can start the wildfire, start small. If you're forcing people with something, you're gonna have that heavier resistance. Find the people that are interested and willing to engage. And like we said, start that wildfire, let the spark, let it grow naturally. You're gonna have results. You're gonna have that authentic engagement, because we want to address that academic gap, but it's hard to address the academic gap if there's no engagement. So you really have to focus on the engagement at the same time. And Defined Learning does an amazing job at supporting not just compliant engagement, but that authentic engagement.
Yeah, there are many places where we go into and there isn't some resistance. So we're well acquainted with it. We're comfortable with it. But that's where you kind of meet them where they're at. What are they already doing that can kind of fit or be modified to incorporate PBL? So, I mean, I know we talked about approachability of the platform, and just, hey, let's look at maybe some tasks that we can replace this worksheet with. Let's go into Define and let's look at some of their tasks and see how we can replace
One thing.
this task
Start
with something more meaningful. Yeah, just starting small.
And that was a great thing. That's also on our sheet is take one activity they have and turn it into a defined task. So you're not even necessarily jumping into the defined platform, feet first. Like, all right, what's something you do? Let me help you make it more like a defined task. And was this successful? Were your students engaged? And so that's a great opportunity starting small. You don't want to force something large that's already scary or nervous.
That's a great segue to another question that popped up in the chat. We're always interested in how we can go about expanding student voice, choice, and agency in classrooms. How much, if at all, how much choice are you allowed in terms of what types of projects that kids engage with or that teachers are able to deploy?
A lot. I think with every project that I've looked at and defined, most of the projects have three
Yeah, three.
Three
At
products.
least three, 2 to 3.
Yeah, 2 to 3 products that students can choose from to create. So it could be like a mural, an infographic, and then some other type of
Travel
product.
brochure.
So choices are embedded within the platform itself, which is great. If you're a teacher that's getting stale with what you're doing, or your creative energy has just been sapped, Define is a great place to go to reimagine some of the things that your kids can create. And it can be revolutionary for what, your enjoyment as a teacher as well.
It speaks to that editability too, editability. You can change, you can swap, I like that task over here, but I want to put it over here, or I do this one thing. Teacher choice, student choice. It really, whatever you want to limit yourself to is what you're going to find.
Thank you so much. Something I'm always interested in is how does this directly translate from classroom experience to real life context? In terms of what you've been able to do, how have you seen those approaches change the way kids think about real world issues and careers beyond high school?
I think one thing is it's not so much we're never going to use this anymore. They're like, oh, wow. And it's not those necessarily big, clear jobs. We're finding some in the community that are related to say, this is a direction that it's going to go. And that person over there, or bring in a speaker to do that. Someone from the community that's relevant that they didn't realize. And then, sometimes we talk about, income, but really just what do they enjoy? There's a great opportunity, especially science. For me personally, we're going out having life science. We're playing in a creek and walking through all of the PBL that was associated with us and the career opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the most exciting things about using Defined is that kids can see a future for themselves, really. I mean, when you talk about having the kid, a 7th grade student in social studies, assume the role of a market analyst looking at the political and economic characteristics of countries in the Middle East.
Wow.
Like that has real world application. And then I know on the back end of projects like that, we would have a discussion. What do you think about this role that you assumed? Is this something that you'd be interested in doing in the future? And then they begin to see your content as a career.
Content, advertising. When those students were making the advertisements, I'm pretty sure there's going to be 3 or 4 marketing careers just out of that one. Because they were able to dissect, we had them dissect commercials, those all identifying, and they were blowing me away with what they were doing.
I think it's so important to underscore in education, it feels in many respects, we tend to teach to test. So we're preparing content so kids remember it and regurgitate it for the test. The idea is lifelong learning. The idea of going to school is what is it going to look like for me as an adult? So what the work you're doing underscores how important that is and shows kids that you're coming to school for a reason. You're not just coming because daily attendance is required.
Right.
There are other things that are going to be beneficial, subsidiaries of that. If you're struggling with school attendance and trying to engage kids, if they're engaged, they have something interesting, they're probably a little more prone to come to school. So you're able to tackle a number of things at the same time. Guys, we have a couple more minutes for a few more questions, so I'm gonna throw some things out there just to keep us moving. The whole notion of connecting history to civic life and workforce skills like communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, social studies is so important in all of that. How do you go about intentionally designing learning experiences that bridge the gap that exists between what school has looked like and what it needs to look like?
All right, ask that last question one more time.
Oh, the part about how you connect social studies and the history of what we've experienced throughout our country, state, whatever, to civic life and workforce skills, and how those skills then translate into kind of closing the gap between what school has looked like forever and what it
Oh,
needs to look like going forward.
okay, yes. Complicated question, but I think I can answer it. I think, when we talk about civic life and social studies and what it can bring to the table, having students look at or making value judgments about historical events. So right now we're designing one with a high school in which they're looking at something that seems as, I don't know, benign as the Columbian Exchange, right? The exchange of food, ideas, biological things, bacteria across the Atlantic Ocean during the age of exploration. They're looking at that and they're making a value judgment as to whether or not that was a step forward or a step backward for humanity. So they are looking at data. They're looking at quotations from people that were on kind of both sides of this exchange at the time. Really, they're looking at the impact. What is the impact of the choices that we make? And if there's anything that we want our students to do, especially now, is consider what choices people have made in the past and the impacts it has wrought on society, both for them and for other societies around them, and really the far-reaching consequences of the choices they make. So when we're asking students to evaluate sources, evaluate data, evaluate things that people said in the past, people did in the past, and consider their impact, I think that's a really good point of reflection for our students today and the people that are leading those classrooms. How is what we are doing impacting these kids now?
Mhm.
And for the kids, how is what we're learning, or what the thought skills I'm learning, how does that help me better evaluate all these alternatives of reality that are now present? Right. So that's the role I think it plays.
Great insight. As society changes, schools need to evolve with that. John and Nick, thank you so much for all that insightful look at how deeper learning transforms student engagement and outcomes. The work you're doing there obviously has an impact on kids. It has an impact on them today, but more importantly, it's going to have an impact on them tomorrow. We thank you for that work, and hopefully you'll be able to influence some of your neighbors and colleagues to understand the importance of this work and why this is what we do. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next up, we're going to hear from Dr. Tracy Pritchett, who leads special programs in Terrell ISD in Texas. Dr. Pritchett brings an incredible perspective on how districts can ensure that all students, especially those with unique learning needs, benefit from the deeper learning frameworks. To give you some perspective on her background, she has a Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies and Master's of Science in Educational Administration and a doctorate in Educational Administration from Texas A&M University Commerce, now East Texas A&M. She began her public education career as a fourth grade teacher in 2001. After 10 years in the classroom, she became a high school testing coordinator with assistant principal duties, then served as an assistant principal for 4 years at the high school, middle school, and elementary levels. She began her first principalship at an alternative campus that then served as an elementary principal for 8 years. The most recent campus where she served was recognized as a, quote, school transforming learning at the Into Learning National Conference, and earned 12 distinctions in 3 years. Ranked in the top 6% of all elementary schools in the North Texas region, and made the honor roll for the state of Texas. Dr. Pritchett began her 25th year of public education this school year and serves as the Director of Special Programs there in Terrell ISD. We are thrilled to have her with us today and to talk about your story, your strategies, and how that's benefited your district. Dr. Pritchett, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I feel blessed and honored anytime I get to share the great things that we're doing in our district. I noticed in the chat that there's some people from Garland, which is not too far from where Terrell is. So yay, glad you're here to have some Texas people. We're going to get started as soon as I start sharing. Here we go. Okay. Can everybody see the screen?
We do indeed.
Perfect. Okay. So again, welcome and thank you for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it. Just to give you a little bit of perspective of where and who we are about, if you're familiar with Texas, Dallas, Texas, we're about 35 miles east of Dallas. We are not small, but we're not big. We're smaller than bigger. And love our community, love everything that we have going on here. As a matter of fact, I was explaining it to Dr. Brown earlier that, hey, excuse the attire today with the t-shirt, but our little town here is undefeated in football right now. We are district champs for the solo district champs for the first time in 10 years. And so we have our final game, district game tonight, and if we win tonight, we are 10-0, baby, 10-0. So I am dressed in Terrell gear right now. So looking forward to tonight's football game. But just to let you know a little bit about us. Very proud of our community, very proud of our kids. Like he said, I've served in the Terrell schools the majority, all but 8 years of my entire career. I've lived here for almost 25 years. Love it, love it, love it. Just to give you some perspective about the academy is in its 7th year of existence. And last year, of course, our numbers change, but this is our numbers as of snapshot last year. Texas people know what that means. So we are small, but we are pretty mighty. Now, understand that this is a choice school. So there is an application process to get into the academy. And even though there's some misconception and perceptions about that, however, understand that even with the application-based process that we have, there's still about 15-20% of our kiddos that are not those distinguished learners like you heard earlier. So we do have a mixture of students that do attend our school here. Just to give you some perspective about where we were. So before I became the principal here, it was not the onset of this campus happened during COVID. So there was that whole shutdown that we all, probably still have PTSD from. But so there wasn't any type of accountability for the campus at that time. So the first year that I was principal here was our first year of accountability. And I just want to show you the slide so you can see where we were before we started using defined learning. So what I really want you to see is that, yes, we have the student achievement. That is not something that's ever been a problem for this campus. Hence the academy itself, the fact that you have to apply to get in. So that should be a no-brainer. That should be an every year thing. But what I really want to draw your attention to is under school progress is that academic growth. And that should never be that for any student in any district at any campus. But the fact that we were an F in that area, again, Texas people, you know what that means. That's part of our accountability system here in Texas. We do get an A through F rating. That's scary, especially when you're supposed to have the highest kids in the district. So what that tells us is that our kids come to us ready to learn, but what are we really doing with them at the time that they're with us, and how are we teaching them, and how are they actually learning? Then that also brings me to that bottom portion down here where it talks about closing the gaps. That is a C. Okay, so earlier I heard a question about buy-in and how did you get your teachers interested? That first year that I was here, like I said, we did not have defined learning. We had teachers at that time on this campus with the mindset of they're already high. They're a higher learner. They're in the 90th percentile, 95th percentile. How, what do you expect me to do? So how I got my teachers to really, and not really buy in, but really invest in what we were doing with our children, as I showed them this data. And I asked them what they did not like about it. And when they saw that academic growth, they asked themselves, what can we do? And I was like, I'm so glad you asked that question. So glad you asked. So that's how we started the talks about defined learning. We actually looked into it for a solid year. We researched it for a solid year before we brought it in. But something that did help us is putting in what we call a WIG, wildly important goal. And if you've done any work in Banbrick or anything like that, then some of this may sound familiar to you that I talk about today. But having a wildly important goal, and for us on this campus, when you're talking about high learners, distinguished learners, if you will, for 80% of all students to meet their growth targets by May, because May is when we test. So we were going to make sure that 80% of not just our testing students, but 80% of our students, kinder through 5th grade, we're going to meet that goal. How do you do that? How do you do that? We get a lot of things just shoved at us that we need you to do this. We want you to do this. You should do this. But very rarely do we get the how piece. So at the beginning of our professional development, I showed this video to teachers just to get them to understand of what they should be looking for with student talk and feedback. So as you watch this, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. What do you notice about what the students are doing versus what the leader in the classroom is doing?
What would you guys say to teachers
Second, I thought they
if they're not getting high quality work? Could they learn something from this? And what would you say to them that they could do differently in their classrooms?
This is a story called Austin's Butterfly. And it's a true story about a first grade boy, and his name is Austin, and he goes to school, or used to go to school, in a town called Boise, Idaho. And in his class in Boise, Idaho, they were studying butterflies, and he had to do a project. His job in first grade was to draw a butterfly, and this is the butterfly that he picked. Austin had to use this photograph as his model, and he had to draw an accurate scientific drawing of this butterfly. This is called a tiger swallowtail.
I knew it!
Can you tell, Toby, why it's called tiger?
Because it kind of have the stripes of the tiger right there.
Good. So here was Austin's job. He was supposed to do a scientific drawing of that butterfly. But remember, Austin was only in first grade. And you know what he did? He forgot to look like a scientist carefully. He got his paper and he just started to draw the image of a butterfly that he had in his head. And he wasn't looking like a scientist, and so this is what he drew.
Whoa.
It's not bad, and it is a butterfly, but does it look exactly like this?
No.
No, it doesn't yet. It doesn't look exactly like this yet. And so they didn't look at this and say, good, Austin, you're done. They said, Austin, good start. Now we can start giving you critique so you can do a second draft and make it better, and a third draft and make it better, and you can make it much, much closer to this, and he was ready to go. All of the first graders in his critique group sat on the floor like you guys are, and they decided to split their advice into two kinds. First, just the shape of the wings. And then when the shape was right, they'd give him advice about the pattern inside the wings. Alia, what would you say?
You can make it much pointier.
Good. These wings could be much pointier. Who else would add something? Atak, what would you say?
How about the angle? Because, not to be mean about
Yes.
the angle, it's just not exact, so...
Okay, so show me. Come on up here, Atak. Show me what you would ask him to do slightly differently.
like to make it a little longer,
Longer where? Draw where you would do it.
right there.
Okay, so pull this out longer.
Yeah.
That's very specific, Atak. Thank you. Jamila, what would you say?
It's like triangle.
Good. Jamila, I love that. So you're saying more like a triangle shape. And I agree. Well, you know what? Those first graders came up with most of those same ideas. And you know what Austin said? He said, okay, I'll go try. And he went back to his seat and he drew this.
Wow.
Does this look more like a triangle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he go out further, like Atak was suggesting?
Yeah.
Did he add some jaggedness here,
Yes.
like Cindy? Did he get rid of that bottom thing?
Yes.
So he did listen to his friends, and he made it better. It's not perfect. Toby, what would you say?
I'd say don't put those little tail things so pointed in. I'd say put them more pointed down.
Good. Okay, and Ethan, what would you say?
I think you should make the wings like this, not like just like.
Okay, he listened to his friends, and they said, this is really a lot better, Austin. That second draft really is better.
Yeah, maybe you can make a third one.
Good, maybe he could make a third draft. And so he did this draft.
That's his third draft.
That's his third draft, Hadley. That's just right. Elijah, what do you notice there?
Well, one wing's more pointed than the other, and that side is a little bit higher than the others.
Good. Coburn?
Right here, it doesn't have the inside thing still.
Ah, okay. Needs a little bit more of that notch. So, do you think maybe he should do a fourth draft?
Yeah.
Well, that's just what he said. He said, shoot, okay, I got round again. I'll go back and do a fourth draft.
Listen.
He listened. Does it look more even like Elijah was suggesting?
Yes.
Yeah, and does it look like it's coming out a little sharper, like
Yes.
Cindy was suggesting? And like Attack was saying, it's a little, the angle looks a little better. So now Austin was feeling really good. He said, am I ready to add some pattern? And they said, okay, why don't you try adding some of the pattern? And he did.
He's good at it. He is so good.
And then they said, Austin, you're ready for color.
Really?
Let's look at his last draft. And what do you think? Did it come out really good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually looks way.
What do you think about how much progress he made? And Tak, what would you say about his progress?
He made like a lot.
Okay, so there is more to the video, but for the sake of time, I'm going to just let you look at that video on your own. So the question that I had asked the teachers to ask them to note, what do you notice? What is happening here? First of all, I would open it up, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to give you the answers that they gave me. Is they noticed the teacher wasn't doing all of the talking, that the students were doing the talking, that the students were providing specific and actionable feedback. And so before we became acquainted with Defined Learning, we were supposed to be a project-based learning campus. That was supposed to be what was the difference between GLA and the other campuses in our district. And like you heard mentioned earlier, we had great posters, we had great models, we had great things like that happening, but not true PBL. So once, again, those bite-sized pieces, once we introduced Defined Learning, these are some of the projects that the teachers took on. These are some examples of artifacts that were created from that. So you see so many different things happening from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And the kids loved it. Their parents would show up to pick them up from, no, you can't, because it's my time with my group. Like there was one kid who yelled at his parents, don't pick me up right now, and stayed. They're like, okay, I'll come back and get you later. So, I mean, how often as campus leaders do we want to hear that our kids don't want to leave, they want to stay at school? So with that came these results. So if you remember before, yes, we were an A in student achievement, but we were an F in academic growth. And look at it now. This is after 1 year with Defined Learning. We went from that 50-something to a 92. A 92. And then we went from a C of a 70-something to a 93 in closing gaps. Like, wow, people. Wow. And the only thing we changed from my first year here to my second year here is we added true project-based learning in with the curriculum that we were already doing. And I turned my teachers loose, let them explore it with the kids. And they loved it. They had a great time doing it. Year 2, same results. something that we've been able to do in history in Terrell is we get those high ratings like a roller coaster because we have so much growth one year and then we kind of dip the next year. Even though you notice a dip from that second to the third year or the second year with defined learning, from that 92 to that 88, it's still double-digit gains from where we were many years before. So yes, it dipped a little bit, but wow, that is still a gain. And you're still talking about those types of gains with high kids, like higher rated kids, higher performing kids. What all of that led to, and you heard some of it in the bio, we were named all of these things. 12 distinctions over 3 years, only one distinction in that first year. I wanted to make note of that. That first year where we were still a B-rated campus, we only had one distinction. But the second year, we had 6 out of 6 distinctions. And if you don't know what that is in the state of Texas, you have to hit certain marks to get those distinctions. And it's all based on testing data. And then last year, because we had that little bit of a dip in that one area, we got 5 out of the 6 distinctions. That 2023 School Transforming Learning, that is, again, recognized nationally, and that was awarded to us because of our student voice and our student choice and voice was why we were awarded that honor. Super proud, super proud. Our second focus as a campus was involving our community. And that is huge in defined learning. That feedback piece, that community piece allowed us, so my teachers got very comfortable with it here. This is how you can see even the connection to tomorrow's workforce. In this picture, you see in these pictures, you see the economic development leader in this picture. You see a Chamber of Commerce leader in this picture. You see our superintendent. You see people from the district level. What I'm about to share with you is feedback that you heard mentioned earlier, a Shark Tank example. So my second grade students were they're in there doing their learning, doing their thing. I walk into a classroom and they're talking about all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh, so y'all mean like Shark Tank? And as soon as I said that, these kids took off with it. They not only came up with their own criteria, they came up with their own rubric. They come up with all of their models. Some of them actually worked. If we had time, I would show you the videos of what you're going to hear some of the feedback on. This actually was shared at that Into Learning conference with staff members. They were able to go and share how they came about with all of this at that conference and was recognized for that. But other things that came out of this, entrepreneurship, food trucks, grocery store management, they invited people from our local Brookshires. And if you know what Brookshires is, you know, it's a loved grocery store here. They brought people in to talk about what it takes to run the grocery store, what all goes into keeping one stocked, and just all of the things that go along with that. So I'm going to play this so that you can hear these kiddos. So not only, like I said, did they design the rubric, but they designed the schedule for people from the city of Terrell to come in. So not only did we have the people I mentioned earlier, but there were people from the city of Terrell. There were people from all, just everywhere coming in to be part of this. They designed money. These kids designed the money so that whenever they were the sharks, if you will, were providing the feedback and saying what they wanted to invest in, these kids actually earned money for that. And they got to, not real money, it was GLA money, but they got to spend that accordingly. So I'm going to share this with you. Very proud.
And also for the Robo-Dog, I like the thought about that because a lot of people in places can have a real pet. They may be allergic to them. that they can do that. One thing I want you to think about, I'm gonna throw in an extra 20, make it 120.
To invest in Knox's invention, the trash can with the remote. I want to put $100 in that, and I'm going to add a 20 if you can work to get it sized where you can also get it to take trash down to the curb. Do you think you could do that?
Maybe if I can.
Get a bigger base?
Yeah.
Okay, so 120 for now. I also want to make sure that I invest in Shoe Wizard, because I think at the W.H. Burnett Pre-K Center would be a prime market for Shoe Wizard. So I want to invest $120 in Shoe Wizard.
The super case, because next time y'all see Miss Annie, ask her about her older brother who had Pokemon cards everywhere. And in fact, he's still today with his son, who's 10 years old. They still collect Pokemon cards. So here is $100 for the super case.
I'm gonna add 140 to super case. I have a son that loves Pokemon cards and one that loves basketball cards. That would be a huge win at our house. So, yeah.
Because I know those same sons, I'm gonna add 100 too.
Oh my gosh, you got like
And I would like to add 80. I don't have anybody who collects Pokemon, but I see them in the park.
Yeah, that's like
You want 100? Okay, I will do 100. How's that? How about 120? Will that work for you?
You accept that? I didn't have any daughters, but I get tangles in my hair sometimes, so I'll add $80 into the brush and hush. So,
Yeah, and I'm going to invest 100 as well, because guess who had to brush Miss Annie's hair when she was little?
Give me just a second. I have to figure out how to get back to my screen. It's so fun. Whoop, I don't know what I did there.
We just
I
look-
may have to.
I think if you click on that tab to the left, that might do it.
Oh, hopefully. I can't see because of the bar. I'm so sorry. I'll get there eventually. That's not it. That's not it. That's it. There it goes.
Yeah.
Sorry, that little bar appears at the top and you can't really see behind it. So what you saw there, those kids, so what she was talking about, the trash can, that baby actually, his prototype actually worked. Like it was a trash can that was happening in the classroom. The little girl at the end, the brush and hush, about the hair, she used her Brave doll, because if anybody knows the cartoon Brave, all the red curly hair, she created a brush that would, and she used the story of how her mom makes her cry in the morning because her hair, it hurts when she brushes her hair, and she created a brush that would work, or a holder, if you will, that would work while her mom is brushing her hair, that it wouldn't hurt anymore. So, I mean, just amazing things, amazing things. So again, very, very proud of what we've done here at GLA. Love the fact that I was able to share that with you guys today. And at this time, if there are any questions, I'll do the best I can to answer them.
Tracy, thank you so much. I'm going to throw out a question really quick, considering you've changed roles now, correct? At being director
Yes,
of
sir.
programs. So after such transformational success there at GLA, how do you maintain and then spread a culture of continuous improvement in regard to what this looks like, especially in a time when educators are stretched so thin and schools are under so much pressure to do more with less?
I will tell you, it has everything to do with the staff. It has very little to do with me. We had 100% return rate of my teachers, and I do get the opportunity in my new role still to work with GLA because advanced academics falls under my position. A lot of times, special programs, people get that thinking that it's special ed. Mine is not. Mine is advanced academics, CCMR. There's a lot of things that I'm still learning. They're adding more and more to me all the time. So it's fun. But so I get to not only see the teachers carry out what's still happening here, but I also get to come visit and see it still live in person. As a matter of fact, I'm here today covering the principal because she's out. And so it was very little to do with me. It had a lot to do with the fact that the teachers, the staff here took ownership of what was happening here, and they're keeping it going. The question that we get is what makes GLA different than any other campus? And Defined Learning is one of the ways that we can, the project-based learning that we do through Defined Learning is one of those ways that we continue to be able to answer that question.
One of the takeaways I'd be remiss if I didn't share is the notion that this type of thinking, this type of instruction, these types of schools and the methodology being used, every kid can benefit from it. There, in so many places, you see certain programs are only for certain kids, and this program is for that kid. All kids can benefit from having an experience that shows how education is directly tied to what their future lives are going to look like. And then you bring the community in to give them some kind of accountability for how these kids progress as well. This is what it's supposed to look like for all kids. And for us to change our mentality in terms of where kids are coming from or where they live, what their zip code might be, only certain things are for them, that has a totally changed. And I think Terrell's given us an example of what that can look like for all kids. Look at how those kids were engaged. Why wouldn't a kid want to come to school every day and love it while they're there? That's what it has to look like. So thank you so much for sharing that information with us. Anything else that you want to stress for us before we leave as a takeaway?
Just that our entire district is about 80% economically disadvantaged. And so although Defined Learning is tied to GLA, we service GT students on every campus all the way through high school. A lot of people have a question about how do you even do that at a high school? And so it's this type of mindset that we are now incorporating into all campuses through project-based learning.
I'm so glad you added that. When we talk about career connected learning, our first fail-safe is to go straight to high school kids and what it looks like for work world. These are elementary kids. They're getting an idea of what the world looks like, how they develop what they like. More importantly, in my opinion, what they don't like, and getting experiences in those roles so they can actually make it something they enjoy for the rest of their lives to give back to society and to themselves. What a great work being done there. We've had an incredible conversation today. I want to take a moment to thank our amazing panelists, Nick Garcia, John Guston, and Dr. Tracy Pritchett for the insight, honesty, and passion that they bring to this discussion. Each of you is doing such vital work to redefine what learning can be and what it can look like for kids and teachers alike. Thank you for modeling what it means to lead with both purpose and with possibility. To all of you who joined us today, thank you, educators, leaders, and partners from across the country. Thank you for spending this time with us. You are the heartbeat of this work, and I hope that you understand that, given how much education is attacked these days. Every day in classrooms and communities, you are shaping the future. The theme of our symposium series is deeper learning and lasting impact, reminding us that we must do everything we can to ensure that all this echoes far beyond the walls of just our schools. Preparing kids for tomorrow's workforce isn't just about readiness for jobs. It's so much bigger than that. It's about readiness for life. It's about curiosity, empathy, courage, and the belief that learning has meaning. My hope is that today has reignited something in you, or ignited for the first time perhaps, a reminder of why this work matters and how powerful we can be when we lead together. On behalf of the entire team at Defined, I want to thank you again for joining us. As we said earlier, a recording of today's session will be available to you in the next few days, and we hope you'll continue the conversation with your colleagues and with your communities. Until the next time we do this, which we're looking at February as our next venture into having this kind of discussion, we hope to keep leading with heart, teaching with courage, and keeping the kind of learning experiences that truly change lives. Again, my name is Dr. Melvin J. Brown. It's been my honor to host this first session of the Defined Symposium. We hope to see you at the next one. Take care, and we'll see you soon.